by prior deficit reduction committees, and as you know, there have been a bunch of them, and they haven't come out. None of these other plans have gotten any traction, and so that's kind of how we ended up with this special committee. But we're going to go into how the special committee, how it may impact Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid as well. And then we're going to talk then about ways that you can take this message back to your friends, your family, your neighbors. We're going to talk about best practices for getting the word out, and best practices on being the activist, and the activist that you all are, and how to step up your game a bit. So before I go any farther, though, I'll just introduce the 2011 is more commonly known as this debt ceiling deal. And it's this Budget Control Act that created this special joint committee. We just call it special committee for short. And it's made up of 6 senators and 6 members of the House of Representatives. 3 Dems, 3 Republicans in the House, 3 Dems, 3 Republicans in the Senate. If you go to the back of the document here, it lists all of the members, where they're from, how they did in our voting record. That's really what matters. So this group of 12 individuals, they've been tasked with finding $1.5 trillion and actually get approved. They need 7 votes for them to be approved. Well then, there are going to be automatic cuts that come into play. So it's in this way that this special committee is actually different than other committees of the past. It's different from the Biden group, it's different from the Fiscal Commission, it's different from the Gang of 6, because it has this automatic feature in it. It's got a technical name called sequestration, but really what it is, it's automatic cuts if the recommendations are not approved. So this group of 12, they have to come up with $1.5 trillion in deficit reduction, $1.5 trillion over 10 years. And they must reach agreement by Thanksgiving. So if 7 of the 12 agree on what is proposed by Thanksgiving, then it will go to the floor of each respective chamber of the House, of the Senate, and Congress has until Christmas actually, I think it's December 23rd. I celebrate Christmas early. To enact or reject the proposal by simple majority. So there's 12. What they need is 7 for those recommendations to become an actual bill that is then voted on. I'm probably going to get to, hopefully, if I'm doing my job, get to answer the question that you may have. So I'll just run through, and then we'll touch on a couple of questions. The procedure for this is that this committee of 12, they'll come out with their recommendations, but unlike other bills that go to the floor of the House or the Senate, where there's amendments, where there's debate, etc., this bill will be fast-tracked. It's either an up or down vote. And you may be thinking, okay, big deal. Well, that actually is a big deal, because while sometimes it's nauseating to hear these folks on the floor go on and offer amendment after amendment, these are actually important features and important ways that constituents can influence legislation. Because just say your congressman or woman is going to vote on a particular piece of legislation, but they want to tweak it a little way to make it more advantageous for your community, which members of Congress do all the time. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. The ability to do that is wiped away when there are no amendments allowed, no opportunity for filibusters. I know that's a bad F word. But anyway, so it's fast-tracked. So you've got your group, there's 12, 6 Dems, 6 Republicans. They have to come up with an actual set of recommendations November 23rd. Then both the House and the Senate have to vote on it by December 23rd. there is no agreement. There are no recommendations. Well, then that's when this process of sequestration will come into play. The cuts will be divided equally between defense and non-defense discretionary programs, and that's a big word, and it sounds fairly bland, but non-discretionary defense includes things such as veterans' health. It includes things such as FDA inspections for both drugs and food inspections, etc. So it's not an entirely innocuous thing. So if it comes to, if these recommendations are not approved, then these automatic cuts come into play equally between defense, like I said, and non-discretionary. Programs such as Social Security and Medicaid are protected if there is sequestration. And we'll go into a bit more detail as to why there's a question as to whether or not we should be fully endorsing sequestration as the way to go or not, but we'll hash that out a bit more in the questions, I think. I think that's an important thing to kind of consider. Let me see what else I might have on this. That's the basic.
I'm sure you've all heard of the Paul Ryan Medicare voucher proposal. Well, we know at least, we know that probably 6 people on this, or 6 of the 12 people on the super committee have supported it to some extent. So, I mean, that's really disturbing. To give you sort of a big picture view of what these vouchers are, CBO said by 2020, Medicare is projected to be 14.3% of GDP. What they will spend under this proposal would be 4%. The rest is all you. We'll be paying for that, and actually more than that, because that 4% is going to be insurance company vouchers. So some of that 4% that they're giving technically to you will go to insurance companies and insurance company profits instead of to the Medicare system that we know. This is a lot like what we've experienced over the last 20 years as people have converted from defined benefit pensions to defined contribution pensions. You know what you get, you don't know what that will buy. Now, aside from the idea that you guys are going to be picking up, I'm going to be picking up a larger share of the cost of my health care. By way of explaining that, they'll start out by paying maybe like $6,000 toward my $8,000 a year that, health insurance costs. But that's going to expand dramatically, and, by 2040 it'll be 9,000 of the 30,000, right? So it's going to be a declining share of what your health insurance actually costs. The biggest problem, I think, in my mind is you'll be getting health insurance instead of Medicare. And as we all know, health insurance involves, co-pays, they decline things randomly. You really don't know what you're going to get until you receive the care and find out whether or not they've paid for it. Reducing your COLA every month. And raising the retirement age. Now, the chain CPI, it's a technical way of saying that they're assuming that once meat gets too expensive, you're going to eat beans. So they substitute, as things go up in price, they substitute cheaper things in so that it deflates the COLA. I mean, at the end of the day, it just means a smaller COLA, right? The problem with the COLA is it's like compound interest. And so if you get a small COLA when you're 66, that reduces even a larger COLA when you're 67, makes it be a smaller percentage of your paycheck, and it really compounds over time when you decrease COLAs. So it's worse for women, it's worse for people who live longer. You really run the risk of outliving the value of your Social Security benefit. The only thing that really makes sense is asking for the CPIE, which is a special CPI for seniors, because as we know, the only people in America right now seeing a huge cost of living increase are seniors, because of the cost. I mean, we see these Medicare costs going up. We see medical care costs, prescription drug costs going up. That's the booming sector of our economy, and seniors are paying for it. They should get a bigger COLA than pretty much anybody else who gets a COLA for any reason. The other thing that they're going to say is not a benefit cut is raising the retirement age. When mathematically, I mean, any time Social Security saves money without increasing how much people pay in, it's a benefit cut, right? But I mean, a good way to look at it is if they, if you retire at 65, 10 years ago, you get the full retirement age. If you retire at 65 in 5 years, you get a major reduction from the normal retirement age, right? So if you work until you're 70 and the retirement age is 67, you get dramatically less than if you retired at 70 and the retirement age was 65. So that's what they do. They take your primary insurance amount that you're supposed to get when you retire, and they add a bunch to it if you retire later, and they subtract a bunch from it if you retire sooner than that age. And study after study has shown that people plan to retire at a certain age, and frequently they don't retire at the age that they had planned on. They get sick. I mean, this happened to my dad. He was going to work to normal retirement age and had to retire a few months early because he just got too sick. So
those folks that we've elected to make decisions in Congress and in our state legislature for us. So, do we go in and talk about all this stuff, or how do we do that most effectively? And so, it's pretty obvious, I think, that we don't talk about a lot of these specifics, but we do talk with a lot of people next to us. And I think Michelle's comment about lobbyists, we are it. We are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists in any given city that we live in, any given organization that we're a part of. We're the lobbyists that can carry this message to those elected officials. And so I think that over the next most immediate time, excuse me, as we begin to figure out exactly what it is we want from this super committee, that little bit of time gives us a tremendous opportunity to build those numbers, to build that coalition, to build our relationships with those organizations that are going to make the message that we give to these people much more meaningful. These folks are used to seeing seniors out there advocating for Social Security and Medicare. We've been doing it for years, and there's no surprise. But when we bring parents and kids into that room with us, when we bring people in wheelchairs into that room with us, when we bring veterans into that room with us to meet with that member or with that staff person, it's a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different experience for them and for us. So I think that really, I brought one of the things, we just did a big Social Security birthday event in California.
CPI is a COLA cut, or just plain and simple, the change CPI is a cut to your Social Security. The second, with raising the retirement age, that also is something that it seems to roll off the tongue of so many members of Congress as a simple solution, but it's really not a simple solution. So I'm going to go back to the change CPI quickly, because it's really, it sounds quite technical, that it can be bewildering. It took me a while, and this is my full-time job, it took me a while to get my head around what this all means. Really, the change CPI is it's kind of this substitution idea, like Michelle said. It's this idea that if the price of apples, for instance, is going up, well, then you'll just substitute it with oranges or whatever, like Michelle said. But for seniors who have healthcare costs make up a large portion, or eat away a large portion of their income, this whole substitution idea is for the birds. You can't substitute, a triple bypass instead with a double bypass. It just doesn't work. So this whole theory is for the birds. It's not just a technical change. It is a real cut. So when the folks talk to you about it and say, oh, don't worry, it's just a simple change to the COLA formula, you tell them, no, I know better. This is a cut to my Social Security benefits. In terms of raising the retirement age is already raising. It's not just 65 as it was back in the day for folks born 1960 and after, which is probably most of you. Yeah. You like that? It's actually 67. So for myself, yes, it would be, hopefully it would be 67. I don't want to going up anymore. But when they talk to you about raising the retirement age, let them know that that it's already raising. It's going up. It will be going up to 67 for those who have not yet retired. And also, when it comes to older workers, this economy has been devastating for them. An older worker cannot just go out and get a job like that. This is a population, especially with this economy, that has found it so hard for those who do want to work and who can actually work, so hard to actually get a job. And then if they do get a job, chances are it doesn't offer health insurance. So this idea that folks can just continue to work a little bit longer, maybe push it to 70, whatever, that might be okay for someone who has a desk job, a 9 to 5. But for the folks that I know who don't have those sorts of jobs, such as my father, aircraft mechanic, you can't keep on working like that. Your body just ages out, like nurses as well. Your bodies just age out. It's not that you want to sit down and eat bonbons all day. It's just not possible for some to continue working.